Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the final council meeting for the year, and I want to thank everybody here. I've never seen a room this full without a lot of people being really, really angry. So it's wonderful to see you all. This is a little bit of an unusual night. We also have a lot of business to get done for the end of the year, so we're going to have what's called a special meeting first. And a special meeting, we'll be taking some action and doing some things, and then we'll actually adjourn for a meeting that's going to start again at 7:30. It's going to be a workshop meeting. If you want to follow along, we have agendas available on the corner desk by Chief Gear. They and a more detailed council packet are available in advance through the city's website. We also televise our meetings live on Charter Cable, as well as broadcast them on Facebook Live and also the city's website, and those are available for download later on. And I'd ask if you have any cell phones to mute those so that the meeting isn't interrupted. And if you get a chance to speak this evening, if you come up to the podium up here and share your name with us, we'd be appreciative for our record keeping. And I think that's everything. I've only done this about 10 years, and this is an interesting evening. So we're gonna move on in the agenda, and we're gonna go to the second item, and that is the roll call vote.
Alvarado.
Just say here.
Oh, I'm present.
Barajas.
Present.
Maloney.
Here.
Martinez.
Present.
Milne.
Present.
Serrano.
Here.
And Watkins.
And here. And we also have a special treat this evening. We have Scout Troop 159 that will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Are the members of Scout Troop 159 here, if you want to walk on up?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job, gentlemen. Thank you, Scout Troop 159. With that, the third item on our agenda is a special treat, something that only happens usually once every couple of years. We're going to have the oath of office for several existing council members as well as a newly elected council member. And I believe this is a case where I might hand this over to the clerk for the operation, or as I just asked the judges. We have this evening with us Judge Stillwell and also Judge Roach to administer oaths of office. And if I could ask that Mr. Milne, Mr. Alvarado, and Ms. Roach-Kahn step up here for the oath of office. I believe they'll lead you in that, and if you stand and face the audience, will probably work.
Stand here and ask you to stand right facing here and
We're going to do this serially, and Judge Stillwell's conferring with some clients here real quick just to make sure they do the oath like they all would like to.
All right, good evening. You know, it is nice to know at the local level we still have people who can work together. And it's my honor today to welcome back council members Ruben Alvarado and David Milne. And I'm going to administer the oath to each of you individually, and also welcome Zara Roach as well. When I'm finished, Judge Roach, my colleague, will administer the oath to Ms. Roach. So, Mr. Alvarado, if you'll raise your right hand, please, and then state your name where it's appropriate, okay? I,
Ruben Alvarado,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America.
Yes.
Can you repeat that after me, please? I'll do this again.
Thank you.
I, Ruben Alvarado, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
I, Ruben Alvarado, will solemnly swear that I will protect the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington.
and the constitutional laws of the State of Washington
And all local ordinances
and all local ordinances,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform,
and I will say that one more time.
faithfully
Faithfully and
and
impartially
impartially
perform
perform and discharge the duties of the office
and discharge the duties of the office
of council member for the District 2
of council member for the District 2
for the city of Pasco,
for the city of Pasco,
according to the law,
according to the law,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God. Thank
Thank you. And Councilmember David Milne, if you'll raise your right hand, and I'll go slower this time. I, Councilmember David Milne,
I, Councilmember David Milne,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and all local ordinances,
and all local ordinances,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties
and I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties
of the office of council member for District 5.
Sorry, can you read that one more time?
Of council member for District 5
For Councilmember District 5
for the city of Pasco,
for the city of Pasco,
according to the law
according to the law
and to the best of my ability, so help me God.
and to the best of my ability, so help me God.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. When we're finished with Ms. Roach, I'm gonna have you step over here and sign your oaths, okay? Judge Roach.
This is gonna be simpler. Please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Zara Roach,
I, Zara Roach,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution and the laws of the state of Washington
and all local ordinances,
and all local ordinances,
and I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties
and I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties
of the office of Council Member at Large, Position 7,
of the office of Council Member at Large, Position 7,
for the city of Pasco,
for the city of Pasco,
according to the law,
according to the law,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you. You'll step over here as well. Before you do that, though, I represented a woman for many years. She was one of my, how would I say this? She was a dear client to me, and she was a very good friend of Zara's mother. Many, many years ago, actually 35, I looked at the plaque this evening, she gave me a plaque that I have in my office, and it states, "The greatest trust between man and man is the trust of giving counsel." Sir Francis Bacon. He was the he was an English philosopher and statesman, the Attorney General and Lord Chancellor of England. And your mother's friend, who you know well, was a great reader and advocate, and she felt that what we do and what you do is of extreme importance, because if we're not listening to those we represent, without compromising our own principles, we're not doing our job. So all the best to all three of you and the rest of you. We'll sign this. Thanks.
And hold off, we're going to get him to sign, and then we'll give him a big round of applause. Make it official. How's that sound? Yeah. And I'm gonna ask for the high sign from the judges. Are we all official? We all official?
Yes.
Well, then give a round of applause. You only become a council member the first time once, so. And special thanks to both Judge Stillwell and Judge Roach to be able to involve our third branch in government in our festivities this evening. We appreciate it greatly. Thank you for your service, gentlemen. With that, we do have another item on the agenda, and I believe this is a case where I'm going to turn this over to the Mayor Pro Tem to run this portion of the agenda.
Well, thank you, Mr. Watkins. We felt that it might be appropriate for you not to administer your own roast. So if you'll indulge me, I believe Mr. Zabel would like to start off this portion of the evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we do have a few items to walk through, and we have a secret sub-agenda that has a number of things we want to discuss tonight. First, there will be opportunity for council comments and public comment, but also there'll be a proclamation, and there's going to be a presentation of a couple of gifts. We don't want to give those away just yet by council. We will have an opportunity for a break for everybody in the audience after this is complete. We anticipate maybe 20 minutes, depending on how much public comment we get. And then we're going to start off with a video. And so the video is just a retrospect of the mayor's time in Pasco and representative of some of the projects and other activities that Mayor Watkins was involved in over his last 16 years on the city council. So with that, this goes back.
Good evening. Tonight is April 5th, 2010, and tonight is our regular meeting of the Pasco City Council. Good evening. Welcome to the May 2nd, 2011 regular meeting of the Pasco City Council. Good evening. Welcome to the April 16th, 2012 regular meeting of the Pasco City Council. Good evening. Welcome to the July 22nd, 2013 workshop meeting of Pasco City Council. Good evening. Welcome to the March 31st, 2014 workshop meeting of Pasco City Council. Good evening. Welcome to the October 5th regular council meeting of Pasco City Council. Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of Pasco City Council this October 17th, 2016. Good evening. Welcome to the May 1st regular meeting of Pasco City Council. Welcome to the regular meeting for Pasco City Council on this May 21st. Good evening. Welcome to the November 18th regular meeting for Pasco Council.
You know, actually, I was looking at our secret agenda, and I think we probably should do the proclamation next, and then council comments and public comments, if that's to your.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Zabel. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and kick off a proclamation. Council members all ready? All right, go ahead and feel free to kick on your lights now. Let's see if we can overload the system. Ooh, look nice. All right, so I'd like to make a proclamation for Mayor Matt Watkins Day, December 11th, 2019. Whereas Matt Watkins, first elected to Pasco City Council in 2004, and
whereas Councilmember Watkins was elected mayor by his fellow council members in 2010 and subsequently has been re-elected as such at every opportunity since, and whereas Mayor Watkins has faithfully led the Pasco City Council as its mayor for the past decade and will complete his current term at the end of December 2019 after 16 years of service to the Pasco community, and
whereas in addition to his city council service, Mayor Watkins has well represented Pasco on numerous tri-city committees, boards, and task forces during his 16 years on city council. And whereas Mayor Watkins has proudly and effectively represented Pasco to state, tribal, federal, international leaders and agencies over his years of service. And
Whereas under his leadership, Pasco has grown and thrived, as evidenced by extraordinary population and economic growth, an incredible decline in crime rates, and marked reduction in the city's tax levy, just to name a few accomplishments. And
Whereas, through his leadership, Matt Watkins has championed efforts to prepare and respond to the growth of Pasco through the strategic investment in major capital projects such as parks, buildings, roads, bridges, water, sanitary sewer, and industrial treatment. And
whereas Mayor Watkins has worked tirelessly through word and deed, formally and informally, to maintain and promote community unity, assuring that Pasco maintains its tradition and reputation as a community welcoming to all. And whereas the Pasco community appreciate Matt Watkins' steady and thoughtful leadership that has helped build the amazing community we live in today. And
now, therefore we, the City Council of the City of Pasco, Washington, proclaim Wednesday, December 11th, 2019 to be Mayor Matt Watkins Day, and in the city of Pasco, and encourage the community to thank the mayor for his work to make us all Pasco proud, and to attend a public reception for the mayor on December 11th at the Pasco Red Lion at 5:30. In witness thereof, we have hereunto set our hand and caused the official seal of the City of Pasco, State of Washington, to be affixed this 9th day of December 2019. So the mayor is reminding me of the rules of running a city council meeting, and indicating that we do indeed need a motion, a second, and a vote for this proclamation. So I would ask for a motion, please.
I'll second, or for the motion?
I move to approve. I move to approve the said proclamation as is.
I'll second.
Thank you. And I'd ask for your voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for keeping us honest. All right, with that, I would ask that the city council members first have an opportunity to say something, and certainly we'll look for public comment right after that for whoever would like to share something. So any council members I'd like to kick us off? Mr. Martinez.
I can kick it off. I want to get it over with. So what I want to share with everyone tonight is just a little bit of, Mr. John Funfar asked us for some words, and I wanted to cite that and maybe and just a little bit more. But Mayor Watkins has been a faithful servant and inspiration for the people of Pasco and the Tri-Cities. His relentless strength and care for people has shaped the community into a striving place to live. His time and effort to improve the quality of life for our citizens will be remembered for a very long time. Mayor Watkins has performed beyond the call of duty, and thank you for your accomplishments and a job well done, Matt. I just want to say I've had the privilege of working with wonderful people in my lifetime. And I always try to grasp the best out of everybody. And I learn as much as I can from everybody. And in these last 8 years that I've been with you here on this council, I've seen some of your characteristics and the tactics you use to control a city council meeting and to lead this community and to be sincere. And most of all, you didn't do it for you. You did it for everybody here. And you did it for that beautiful lady back there, your mom and your dad. And I just want to thank you for giving that, your passion, you know, these years of passion, commitment. Because I'm going to tell you, this is a commitment that it's hard to comprehend what it all involves. But I just want to say thank you for your dedication and your sincere passion for this. And may God bless you in all your roads, where where you're going from here. The adventures are to come, and I just want to say God bless, and we appreciate everything you've done for us.
Other members of council, and I promise you can speak up during public comment if you need to think about this for a little longer. Mr. Serrano.
You know, I've seen plenty of people retire in front of me, and I'm typically jealous of them. This time, it just kind of sucks, to be honest. Usually, there's a loss of institutional knowledge, intelligence, but you embody way more than that. You are the mayor. You aren't just a mayor, but you are the mayor. You've embodied it, as Saul said, and you've represented so much more that can't be passed down. And so when I think about January, our first meeting, and a different person striking that gavel, it's sad, it's awkward. I know we'll be okay. We're like those children that you've had under your wings. And I know we won't fail, but it's just going to be missing a piece of us. And I mean, fortunately, I know you're not going to die. You know, you're healthy, you're moving on, you're going to do some fun stuff. And we'll see you around. But there's still that part of missing. And it's going to be hard. I look forward to seeing what we grow into. And I know you will be watching us from afar and critiquing us from afar. But I also know there's that safety net of, you've always said, the internet and the phone. And I appreciate that you don't want your legacy to stop just because you're retiring. You want to be part of it. And that's who Matt Watkins is. Someone who has so much to offer and so much to give and gives it all. And I appreciate the past 2 years of being able to call you my mayor and my friend. And I will certainly still call you my friend after this, even though I'll be sad to see you go. Thank you.
Mr. Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Matt, it's been an incredible honor. I think most of us who were new 2 years ago came in here just hoping for the best. But I think you have really embodied a sense of confidence, but also a sense of just, hey, we've all been there, and have all made us feel very, I think, to be able to walk into the shoes that we're trying to walk into. And so I think that from the first day I met you, you've been nothing but just an incredible just example of what service is, what servant leadership is. Just your ability to take people under your wing, but also your ability to propel people as well. I think that most people who know you would say that about you. And so I'm very just so honored to have shared this council with you and to be able to follow your leadership in this council as well. And we know we have a lot of legacy to walk into, but we feel very empowered by just the walking with that you have done over this past 2 years. So we're very, very thankful.
Thank you, Ruben.
Mr. Milton.
Yeah, it's hard to top what Mr. Serrano said, but I will say that I've always considered you, besides a friend, also as a father figure. Maybe it sounds a little different, but your advice, your knowledge, and then your just all the different things that you've wanted me to like getting into leadership Tri-Cities and the different things that you've encouraged me to do and to get out there and be active in the community. I really appreciate your good advice. To me, it always seems like you're a fellow Rotarian because you've always did the service above self. Even though I know you're not a Rotarian, but it does really seem that way. But yeah, I'm going to miss you and I miss your leadership, and I'll always remember us being in Mexico and being able to sing with you on top of the mountain. So it was good times. So I wish you the best of luck, and I can't wait to see all your travels through the world.
Ms. Barajas.
Thank you. Mayor, I've only known you for a short time, 2 years, but in those 2 years, you have been a great leader. It's very sad to see you go. I especially, I appreciate that I've met you, your mom. Oh my gosh, I don't want to get emotional here. I've learned from you. You have a very generous heart. You have a passion to help the community. You have a passion to give back to the community. And if something that I've learned from you and your mother is to give back to the community. And I appreciate that. I appreciate your many years of leadership. And I appreciate your welcomeness of the diverse community that we live in. I just hope to learn more from you. Thank you for all your years of service.
So I guess I'll wrap this up unless Matt, you are really looking to toot your own horn for a little bit here.
No, it's just overwhelming.
All right, I'll give you a break and won't make you get up and speak, but yet. So I guess I want to share a couple things because I've had the privilege of knowing Matt for many years now. I won't go into the details of the time he tried to drown me in the ocean, but I'll just leave it out there.
It's true.
Well deserved. Let's be honest. So one thing that's kind of funny is actually my brother was the first one to encourage me to run for council, and this happened actually many years ago. And he said, "Darn it, no one should run unopposed. So I'll pay your filing fees if you run against Matt Watkins." I declined. You're doing a good job, and I didn't want that hassle. Never thought I'd want it. You know, one thing I really want to share is where I first really got to know Mayor Watkins in his service role, as opposed to someone I knew as more of as a friendship, was when I went through the Leadership Tri-Cities program, and Matt was leading our local and state government session, and I've been really trying to struggle to find my place of how I give back to the community, who I am in this community. And Leadership Tri-Cities was a great leverage point for that and really helped me understand that better. And one of the most startling things was as Matt was helping guide us through understanding what local government is and what state government is, and really giving us the opportunities to understand and embrace it. Completely unexpectedly to me, I found that it resonated with me. I found that the need for the service within a city and municipal role is strong. It's a fairly thankless job a lot of the times. We rarely have a full chamber, and we often have detractors come in droves when they're unhappy with us. But I can say with complete sincerity that the only reason why I'm sitting here today is because of Matt. When I finished the Leadership Tri-Cities program, I came to Matt and said, "Hey, how can I serve? How can I get back? How can I connect with the city and with this community?" And he said, "I think the right role for you planning commission like I was hoping for. He said, I think what I need you to do is I need you to be on the Pasco Public Facility District Board, and I need you to help shepherd that through, because right now they're kind of at a pivotal moment of trying to figure out what this is going to look like in terms of whether or not the regional and the city moves forward on a water park. And again, because of Matt's trust in me and realization of how important service in the community is, and understanding me and where I would fit in well, we were able to, earlier this year, we saw the picture up there, we were able to get a bill signed with through the state legislature, which allows Pasco to evaluate moving forward with a water park, and it might really bring to fruition something that's been in the works for quite a long time, for decades. We can talk so much about Matt and his leadership in the community and how much he means to all of us, but I think the strength that people sometimes miss about Matt is that understated importance of running smooth bureaucracy. And that sounds just like the worst compliment I could give.
That's the best compliment.
Damning with faint praise, I think. But it's true. When you look at what a city does and how a city engages and how we as Pasco are part of this larger entity of the Tri-Cities and the state, all the mechanisms, all those little things that work, all those gears that have to line properly for this to work, Matt understands and has spent so much of his time to make them work for us. And I just can't say enough about how much I've learned and about what he's done that never once hit the paper, because that's a good thing when you don't hit the paper, and how much that's changed the way the Pasco and the Tri-Cities functions. And to me, that is the most impressive accomplishment, is how effortlessly he makes it look to run a city like the city of Pasco. So thank you so much, Matt. All right, enough out of us. We have plenty of opportunity to speak. What I would like is, would members of the public like to come up and maybe say a few things? Mr. Robinson, I am shocked that you would be the first to volunteer.
I know, right?
Would you like to please come up and say a few short words? Thank you.
I warned you this was coming, Matt. You had to know. Thank you. I will try to not to get emotional. So I've been thinking a lot about you, and I've kind of been dreading this day, not because I don't love Zara. I think she'll be a kick-butt council person, but because one of the fundamental questions I had to ask myself at the start of 2017 was what I believed in. What did I hope to accomplish with my own life? I had lost so much. The men who formed my philosophies and taught me right from wrong were dead, and I came into the city council chamber hoping to find something, hoping to find some semblance of a path I could walk, some way in which I could find relevance and do something I believed in. And I saw you guide a meeting, and I've been watching you ever since. And every time I get asked what, for me, a real leader looks like, what I hope I one day can become, if I ever am lucky enough to sit at a dais like that, I mention your name. See, in a time when everything seems like it's falling apart and our institutions are going through a bit of a crisis of faith, you've been that one symbol, that one little thing that you can point to at the end of a day to know that you're in the right place, to know that it is going to be okay, to know that what you believe isn't wrong and that you can have hope. And so for the last 3 years, that's what you've given me. A sense of hope, a sense of optimism, and a sense of strength. And I'm going to miss you so much. And I'm trying not to get emotional here, but I just wanted to say thank you. I know I could probably come up with something better. I'm a little emotional right now, and we know how that messes with me being articulate. I just wanted to tell you, in everything you did, even on your darkest day, you made us all proud. You restored faith, you restored hope. What greater patriotism could you possibly have offered than coming in here with the will to do what was right? You are a gift to all of us, and I'm really going to miss you. Thank you.
Mr. Hastings.
Thank you. Colin Hastings, Pasco Chamber of Commerce. Mayor Watkins, thank you so much for your service on behalf of the Pasco Chamber. I thought I'd just share a quick story since you said a roast. I know, so maybe kind of leading into that. A quick story of, I think, really embodies what Mayor Watkins' commitment to the city really is. And this was probably back in 2012 where we had a young new member of the Pasco Chamber of Commerce opening a business. And part of the duties that we do is offer a ribbon cutting ceremony. And this young lady was intent on having her ribbon cutting ceremony Sunday, Mother's Day morning at 11 a.m. And so even though I pushed her for more equitable times, that would be better to bring a big group to celebrate her opening, it turned out it was just Matt and I that were there for the ribbon cutting ceremony. So I think that shows the importance that Matt really kept to the community, and I think it shows that our mothers are very forgiving as well, and my wife. Yeah, I know. So thank you for that. But you know, I like I said, I could go on for a long time, but I thought that story really embodies what you were to the community. I know you're going to travel the globe and see lots of great cities, but we're waiting for you to come back home to probably what you'll be reassured is one of the best places in the earth. Thank you.
Mr. Novakovic.
Michael Novakovic, Visit Tri-Cities. Matt, I think it was maybe 14, 15 years ago at Leadership Tri-Cities alumni function. I met you. You rolled in on a motorcycle, and I thought, that's a pretty cool dude. And then I got to talking with you, found out you're a fellow scuba diver, and I'm like, he's in. But the more I got to talk to you, the more I recognized what an outstanding leader you were. And then here I show up in this role, and I've got the great opportunity to come in front of this council, and you welcome me every time. You value what we do, tourism, economic development, and enhancing quality of life. You serve on the Tri-Cities National Park Committee, which brought about the Manhattan Project National Historical Park here to our community, and it's outstanding. So we greatly appreciate you at my organization, but when I look at what you do, I love your focus on leading Pasco, and you've done such an outstanding job. But what I love about it is it's felt throughout the entire Tri-Cities, and we all get to enjoy that. So you're an inspiration. I look forward to watching your travels via Facebook, living vicariously through you, and from one motorcycle enthusiast to another. Keep the rubber to the road and the shiny side up. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Equal time.
So Gary, I brought you here today so you can see something bad about Matt. So if you could get straight to the roasting part.
Well, most of those stories I don't think are appropriate for a public setting, but I appreciate that.
Fair enough. I appreciate you keeping PG.
Yes, I will, definitely. So, Gary Ballou, Port of Pasco, Matt, we just want to thank you for your support of the Port over the years. Of course, I've had the chance to meet you when in prior roles when I was at City of Richland, and I think potentially back to my Benton County days. So it's been a long time, and I just wanted to say there was one thing, and I hope I don't get this quote wrong, but we've talked about regionalism and being proud of the community that we're in, but also the importance of the community at all. And I think you said, I live in Pasco, but my home is the Tri-Cities. It was pretty close, and that was just one that always stuck with me, and I always appreciate it, and one that I've oft repeated during my time, and that you've not only been a champion for Pasco, but been a champion for the Tri-Cities. So I appreciate that, and I don't know what I'm going to do with the honorific now of Mayor Matt, which is how I've referred to you for a number of years. So you will be missed. Keep in touch. Thank you.
Mr. Portugal.
Tall people. Well, from the Downtown Pasco Development Authority, I'd like to express our thanks to you, your support. For some of you that understand what's going on in downtown Pasco, had the danger of becoming a very, very serious ghost town in a way, in a lot of empty buildings. And then with your involvement and all that, that's been changing. And so now downtown Pasco has a future, and I think you play a big role in the agreement with the DPDA and the city. So from that aspect, as the chair of the DPDA, I'd like to thank you. But I'd like to take you back to the first time you wanted to run for city council back in 2004, and how you met with, I think there were about 30 or 40 folks from the Latino community, and at that time you were, kind of learning or trying to soak into what's going on in our area, and I thought that you had this good open mind view of what Pasco, and I thought this is something that we wanna, we wanna hear this, and we listened to you, and we were impressed. And what's more important is that there is the sometimes we talk about Latino and non-Latino, and we just want to make sure that in Pasco we try to do both and try to navigate so that the Latino and the non-Latino can live together, and we learn that there are really good folks in any race, any place, any gender, any language. So yes, we're really impressed with the way you transformed from the candidate of 2004 to the mayor. And you can see the folks here tonight that came to say, or to see you depart. And so we're very thankful. And as a friend, going to Colima with the Colima delegation was a lot of fun. I saw you a little scared, but then again, in 2-3 days, you were saying, hey, this is fun. And you actually beat us because you were there a little earlier. But seeing you in Mexico and doing things in a different country also gave me a window of information about who Matt Watkins is. So thank you very much for all your work, and good luck wherever you do. Gracias.
Other comments? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Pat Roach. I'm an attorney in Pasco. I've been to a couple city council meetings in the last 20 or 30 years. Before that, I went to a lot of them. I've watched it on TV a few times over those years, but I've watched Matt as the chairman of Ben Franklin Transit for dozens of years. And one thing I've got to say about Matt, of all the leadership I've seen in government, he listens to both sides before he makes a decision, or before he even tries to influence anybody else on the board or the audience. And it's just amazing his ability to listen to all sides before coming to a conclusion. And I hope that the leadership we have continues in Pasco to that degree, and I hope it does at Ben Franklin Transit too. So thank you, Matt.
My name is Mike Roach, and he was my father, Pat. So I thought I'd follow. I represent Pasco High School in the class of '65. And 55 years ago or more, I first realized that behind every good man is a good woman. And so I'm here to congratulate Sue Frost, who is his mother, who imbued provided him with the leadership and the love and the gift and the servant leadership that he has taken from his mother and given to the community of Pasco. So, to your mother.
Sue Frost, would you mind raising your hand so everyone can see who this? I'm pretty sure I can just say Mr. Roach repeatedly and pretty much.
Yeah, John Roach here. We needed the trifecta, I think, and we might as well get it out of the way. So, Matt, I just want to say, as someone who first met you, I think in 2009 when I came to work at Lockheed Martin, you were already there. And you and I first started having conversations outside of a work context when Zara submitted her to be considered for the Planning Commission. And so, our conversations about community service and leadership and community development sort of started then. And then I went through the Leadership Tri-Cities program, and that became another point of reference like it was for so many of you here. And so I think what your departure has me reflecting on is something that many others have pointed to, which is, amongst all of your leadership qualities, this quality of mentorship and of seeing capability and capacity in other people and knowing how to draw that out of them in a way that seems like it's their idea, maybe. And I saw that with Zara and you. And I can't say that it was your idea for her to put herself into consideration for the Planning Commission. But I can say that over the years, as you saw her on the Planning Commission and you witnessed her continued commitment, you entered into a mentoring relationship with her that was as significant as any relationship that she had, I think, in igniting the desire to actually run for office and then to run again and to win and to succeed you. And so I just, think that it's such a tangible reflection of who you are and what you've meant to her that she will be there in that seat when you leave. It's just awesome. So thank you.
Anyone else want to speak this evening? And you'll have another opportunity come Wednesday as well, so please.
Ben Shearer from the Pasco Fire Department. Many of you know me as the Community Risk Reduction Guy, and while I'm certainly here as a member of the Fire Department, thanking Matt for all of the leadership. When the Fire Department came, presenting some out-of-the-box ideas on how to take care of the citizens of Pasco, you were there helping us through that process. But what I'm really here tonight is a member of the Union of Local 1433. We come here every couple of years with contract negotiations, and we appreciate the work of the staff and, of course, the leadership of the council as we work on trying to negotiate a teamwork to create a Pasco Fire Department and what it is for the citizens of Pasco. We've always appreciated Mayor Matt Watkins' approach with us. It's always been fair. We appreciate the fact that he's got a city to run and a balanced budget that he's got to create out there as well. But we've always felt like we've been heard and our care and concern have been heard as well. And from the council to the staff, but appreciate for definitely coming down from that leadership position. So we just wanted to make sure that the union had that voice tonight and appreciating Mayor Matt Watkins' work here with us in creating the team partnership that the local has with the city of Pasco. And we'd like to present to the mayor a challenge coin from Local 1433. If everybody knows the history of challenge coins, the fact that they're presented because of special work, because of special efforts being done on behalf of somebody in an organization. We're hoping in your travels it might also help relieve you of paying for a few refreshments along the way.
Ma'am.
Marilyn Cunningham Baker and a class of 1965. That's important that I mention that, the class of 1965. Did anybody not get that? The class? No. I'm also a part of the Historic Preservation Commission. How do you express the appreciation for an elected official who has done that job for 16 years? How do you express that? I thought about it. Specific accomplishments, the list is huge, versus overall achievements, or the manner in which the accomplishments were achieved. And whether those issues were big or small, or short, or tall, old or young, or about the past, the present, and the future. Matt's concern and compassion, and what surprised me was everybody that has spoke today has spoken about his concern and his compassion. He has been a role model for all of us. Matt never worried about his reputation. Never worried about his reputation. But he worried about the reputation of the city of Pasco. He worked about preserving the history of the city of Pasco, and as well as ensuring a vibrant future for Pasco and all its citizens. Thanks to Matt and all who worked for him and with him. Pasco is a gathering place, a place to come together, a place to put aside differences and to focus on common ground and common goals. Matt, thank you for all you have done for all of us. We wish you the best in your journey ahead.
Anyone else this evening want to come up and share? And again, another opportunity will be had for on Wednesday. I'm sure you'll be able to show up and maybe with a little more planned speeches if you really aren't good on the spot. Anyone else? Mr. Zabel has a public comment to make. All right.
Well, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. As the city council's only employee, which Mayor Watkins likes to use that term a lot, I thought I probably should say something. But Matt, I've worked with a lot of mayors over 35 years in 5 different cities, both sides of the state. And I got to say, you're in a league of your own. I mean, that is what you've done. I've seen your back ramrod straight as we push through stuff, and I've seen compassion from you envelop the entire council chambers and soften a crowd and make them feel like they belong here and they're part of Pasco, and we're going to do what we can to make it better. And I've seen both those things come out of you and everything in between. I think you've been great for Pasco, and you know what? I think Pasco's been pretty good for you too. So definitely a lot of growth I've seen just in the time I've been here. A few of us are holding some of our powder, trying to keep it dry for Wednesday, so I don't have a whole lot of specifics to get into tonight. But on behalf of staff, at least for tonight, I just want to thank you for your political leadership. Let you know it's been very inspirational as well as appreciated. So thank you.
All right, if there's no one else this evening, sir?
I should warn council, this is my longtime great friend, Justin Mays.
And leave it to me to show up on your last day. I apologize.
So do I also need to warn you to keep it PG? No.
Yeah. So I've been doing Matt, I don't know, 40 years now. I think time flies. It really does. Thanks for serving the community. Thanks for being such a good friend to me all my life. Thanks, my brother. Appreciate it. And thanks, Mom.
I'm feeling like I need to do a last call here because I believe there's refreshments and we want to have time for they get to that before we get right back to work at 7:30. Any other comments?
Do I get to make a comment?
I suppose you can. We had other items on our secret agenda, but yes. Mr. Mr. Mayor, would you like to say something to the crowd?
I would, and 16 years, one would think that I have planned for a number of weeks, but every time I tried to write something, it just didn't flow right. So I kind of hoped that I'd be able to come here and stitch some stuff together and then not lose it. And this is not going to hit all of the feelings that one has over 16 years, but I think back in about 2003, I sat in Mr. Milne's seat, and right next to him was Charles Kilberry, and he was one of those mentor people in my case that I found an incredibly inviting city. And I'm not going to be able to get everybody, but some of the people along the way included then longtime city manager Gary Crutchfield, and then also assistant city manager Stan Strebel, who just retired recently, sent me regards. And then I also think about how I ended up down here as Mayor Pro Tem not too long after that, and Joyce Olson sat in this seat as mayor second time around, and was again that mentor and that philosophy of having a firmness and vision of how something should be done, but also compassion to listen to everybody along the way. And sometimes I also heard that it sounds like I did everything for the city, but I'll tell you it's not the case. I've had the wonderful opportunity, and to borrow a sports metaphor, it's a bit like being in a baseball game. You're in a dugout, and that's the single best view of the game. you have an opportunity to influence the game. You're not, one player is not the one though that's going to win the game. And being a kid actually who grew up in Kennewick, who moved to Pasco and chose to make a home in the 90s, I was always keenly aware of the pride in Pasco, and to be able to see that develop at a particularly important point of some challenging 80s for this city, and then for the influx of people to come in the 90s and then in the 2000s, and it's actually still amazing the number of people coming to our community. And also, because of Pasco being a community very protective of itself in the larger Tri-Cities, had an opportunity to also become a leader in part of the Tri-Cities in certain aspects, and to be able to see that transition to where we as the Tri-Cities have become an incredible regional destination for a thing. And I also think back, I got a chance to read the first set of minutes, the very first meeting in 1891. And in September, one of the things that I learned from there, and it's symbolic, is that the very first action of the Pasco City Council, Pasco Town Council in 1891 was to elect a clerk, choose a clerk, and also marshal and another staff member. That is an example today that the staff are the people that do most of the work in the city of Pasco. They make the council, is here, and I say, make sure the council staff don't run amok, check in on them now and again, but they're the face and they're the ones who do most of the work. And be able to sit up here and champion and be able to talk about the wonderful things that this city does has been an incredible experience. And I think I've also said a couple of times the term servant leadership or Rotarians also, well, volunteered to help with their website, helped out. But I also look over to my mother and the principles she said, give back to the community that gives to you. And that's been an overriding principle from all my time and will be for my entire life. And also I had a chance, the first civic group I got to lead was Tri-City Water Follies. And if you're not aware, it's sort of like Rotary, except you get to drink beer, which is a perfect situation. And I was scared, very scared when they said I was going to become the president of that. Somehow you volunteer and you don't get told until the year it's coming up. I bought one of those little books on Robert's Rules of Order. And there is a philosophy that's stuck with me, still sticks with me. Everybody has a right to be heard, but at the end of the night, the group has a larger right to make a decision. And that's been a fundamental philosophy that I've tried to do as the mayor for the past 10 years. And to all the people that have thanked me and said wonderful things about me, thank you. And also the people that I've maybe not treated as well as I have, I apologize. Also, I have tried hard, and I want to thank everybody, every single person of Pasco and the Tri-Cities. Almost made it. For giving me the chance to serve. It's been an incredible honor, and I thank you all very much.
All right, continuing on our secret agenda, as Mr. Zabel has eloquently put it, Mr. Mayor, we do have a few things for you, and you got to stand up and do a photo op. So
Okay. Let me pre-dry some eyes
pat
here.
the cheeks a little bit. All right. All right. We do have a couple things to give to you. Mr. Martinez and I have we'll each hand you one item, but we're going to go ahead and stand up in front of the dais here and get a couple pictures and present you with some gifts. Please, if the other council members would join us.
Something like this?
This will work just fine.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Mayor, we have a couple little items to to thank you for your service, some mementos for us. So the first item here is actually a key to the city. Mr. Zabel would like to point out that, wanted me to point out that it is the new logo. This is the first key for the new city logo. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much.
And also, on behalf of the city council and staff, and the ones who actually produced this, it's an album so that every once in a while you can come back and you can look and see how much you weighed. and the impact that you make to this community. Thank you so much.
And with that, we're going to take a quick break. Mr. Mayor, would you like to gavel us out of perhaps this meeting or
I think we have still more special meeting.
We're going to take a brief break and then come back after a meeting. So folks who have other things to do this evening can get to them, and we have some refreshments and personal things.
Do it, 10 minutes? What do you think?
10, 15 minutes.
Okay, well, this is all official because we're still public meeting, Open Public Meetings Act, so we're going to take a 10-minute break and be back in session at approximately 7:15. We're in break. And we're going to restart the meeting. We do have some more business to take care of this evening. Thank you all for coming and wishing me well and the Pasco well. We have, I'm going to find the right spot on the agenda, we're on to section 5 on the agenda, ordinances and resolutions not relating to hearings. And I'm going to be a little iffy on which things we've talked about before or not, but I'll defer to staff here. We have non-represented in management wage salary plans, Mr. Zabel.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council, and we have not had an opportunity to discuss this at least this year, except tangentially as part of the budget. So annually, the City Council considers and authorizes salary scales for the next calendar year for the city's management and non-represented employees. And this differs, and we heard a little bit during some of the audience testimony a few minutes ago. It differs a little bit in how unionized employees' salaries are determined, which are negotiated through collective bargaining agreements over generally a period of years, 2, 3, 4-year contracts. So while the process is different, the goals are the same. City employees, one being city employees receive a fair wage commensurate with skills and responsibilities of the positions and associated with a particular job classification, that we maintain competitiveness and with comparable agencies for the purposes of recruiting and maintaining quality workforce, and that we avoid wage compression and maintain rough parity internally through the organization. So over the past few labor agreements, going back to that a minute, City Council and the city has made, I think, very good progress in bringing its unionized workforce into rough parity with comparable cities. And as part of that process, Council has also been supportive of COLAs to its management and non-represented employees, and kind of working through that effort to trying to get those salaries up. The adoption of the proposed salary schedules would essentially complete a multi-year process of bringing our non-represented and management employee classifications, one, into internal parity with one another, and then roughly competitive with our peer agencies. So earlier this year, the Human Resources Department did a salary survey, which was completed, and reviewed each of the classifications as they compared to municipalities of similar size and complexity to the positions with similar functions and responsibilities in Pasco. Some of the comparables used, Council will recognize, are longtime comparables like Kennewick and Richland and Bremerton and Lakewood and Longview, and a couple of new ones like Yakima and Puyallup that have slipped into our list of comparables. And that list is driven primarily by population of about either 50% below or 50% above Pasco. And then approximately 20%, within 20% of the city's general tax measurement. And that would be property tax, kind of a combination of property tax, sales tax, utility tax, things like that, that kind of make the ability to pay side. So the COLA proposed for management and non-represented employees is 2.6, which is based on the index the city uses, the Pacific Cities and U.S. average CPIW, specifically the June 18 to June 19 measure, which is again 2.6. And in addition to those COLAs being added to the two salary schedules, there was adjustments made for market competitiveness. And so I want to talk about each of the salary schedules separately. The first one, I'll talk about non-represented salary schedules, which reflects the 2.6% COLA. The market adjustments were attained and internal parity were attained through moving certain positions within the classifications that were not properly located based on, there could be a lot of different factors. It could be market, it could be the technology for those positions advanced, for instance, instrumentation technicians, things like that. Additionally, there was the number of steps in that salary schedule is proposed to decrease from 12 to 7. We had 12 steps. It would take a employee more than a decade to get to the journey level salary steps. And what was really problematic about that, in looking at the information from the salary study, was that our maximum steps weren't really that far off, but our entry-level steps, how we recruit, because we had so many steps and there was 2% between each steps, they were very low, and it made recruiting difficult. It's been a long time since rarely have we been able to hire an experienced employee in anything lower than the third or fourth and sometimes fifth step. Sometimes we have to go as high as 7 steps if they're already employed at a different agency and we don't have an opportunity to hire someone experienced. So we basically have about an 18% spread now between the top step and the first step. I think that's going to allow us to be more competitive in recruitment and allow for a quicker progression by the employees to journey level steps, which also is a retention issue. If it takes you 10 years to get to the top scale in one place and 7 another, folks consider that when they're looking at a job. So markets adjustments, as I mentioned, were accomplished through a movement within the scale. Probably the most noteworthy, and you don't have necessarily that information, but our Department Assistant 1 position, which is the lowest paid position on your scale, was at grade 5. And that grade was actually about $1.50 below the minimum wage. So we could not fill that position. Well, we couldn't fill it legally, but we haven't used that position in many years. And so our market analysis put that position at about a step 20. A couple of other, I think, noteworthy. There's some minor adjustments, but another noteworthy one. The permit techs were down in looking at, which is a very similar job classification in most communities. Ours were significantly underpaid, probably 6 to 8% underpaid. That movement from grade 29 to where it's proposed as a grade 33 puts them at more closer to market, and we're recommending that. And another big move was our staff accountants. Again, those were underpaid by about 4 steps. We're proposing to move those to from a 45 to a 49. And then there's a series of other ones in there that are 1 or 2 step moves that I could certainly go into those if council wanted to, but don't really need to. And with that, we'd really be in a pretty good position from a competitive standpoint. And as I mentioned, that's kind of been a long-term goal, and it's taken us a few years to get there. So with there's no questions on non-rep, I'll move on to the management scale. Management scale is a little bit easier. That scale, first thing we did was put the 2.6% on it, and then did this evaluation in terms of competitiveness. And for the most part, we're just a few percent off. And so what I've done is in presenting here tonight is to set those positions, and management scale is a little bit different than the non-reps, where it's a maximum number, and that's something this city's historically done. So you can start a person wherever you want to start them, but what's reflected on the schedule is a maximum. And the 2.6% brought a lot of the positions within a few percent of our comparables, and average our comparables, and I adjusted along those lines. The most significant one, frankly, is the ones involving our law enforcement and public safety, fire folks. The fire chief, police chief band is up about $1,000 a month max, and as well as the band with the deputy fire chief and deputy police chief in there. Both those were significantly under all of our comps, and that adjustment needs to happen if we're going to stay comparable. A lot of it is driven by the fact that we have pressure underneath. That's the compression piece we were talking about with the unionized ranks moving forward, and the competitiveness that we need to maintain with them to be able to negotiate rather than have interest arbitration decide what our salary ranges are going to be for the unionized folks. For the most part, the other ones are within a pretty good range. I bumped the public works director and finance director and CED director a bit, and a couple others, but within 1 to 3% above what 2.6 would have already wrought for you. And then a reminder of the council that at least in the case of management, there aren't steps, so that moving the max makes us more competitive. It doesn't necessarily translate to a big pay increase for all these different positions. We'll evaluate those based on performance and how long you've been doing it and those kind of things. So with that, recommend adoption, and if staff or council has any questions of staff.
With ask that, and we'll ask questions or a motion. Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4478, providing for certain adjustments in non-represented, non-management wage plan beginning January 1st, 2020, and further authorize publication by summary only.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Alvarado. Discussion on this one, Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Zabel, this is, as I recall, I don't think I'd even taken the oath of office before. I think I had a conversation or two with you about this subject, as it is something that I'd heard frequently, was that City of Pasco was not competitive, and we were keeping people here as much because they love the city as because of the wages, or possibly more so than their wages. So the simple fact is, as we grow and as we become more competitive as we become the professional organization that we really need to, I think this is one of those necessities. So I appreciate this, and I'll be supporting it.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. And you said at the beginning, Mr. was able to, looking at the report, it's about 250K or so for over 124 employees. The usual, if I'm reading the agenda report correctly.
You are correct.
Okay.
I meant to mention that during my presentation.
And there's a tendency here too that if you don't consider your non-represented employees, that will have sometimes a tendency for some portions of them to consider unionizing and that sort of thing. So there's a natural element of why you want to also be equal across the different groups of employees. Is that true as well?
I think that's a fair statement.
Okay. And I think also pointing out too that $250,000 a year in an operation, and we're a $450 million budget every 2 years. So still six figures, but it is relatively small compared to the fact that probably 2/3-ish of our stuff goes towards labor, at least to the general fund.
That's correct.
Okay. So I'll be supporting it as well. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to add that the reason why I think this is important is because if we're not competitive, we have more of a turnaround, and that costs a lot of money. And by the time somebody gets up to par, it ends up taking a step back. So I'm in favor of this. Something we need to do, and we trust that you do your job and give it away appropriately. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Well, there's Mr. Maloney to the first one, so we have specifically on the floor for the ordinance 4478. I'm going to ask all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Second part, Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4479, providing for certain adjustments in the management salary plan beginning January 1st, 2020, and further authorize publication by summary only.
It's been moved and seconded by Ms. Barajas. Discussion on this one? Hearing none, all those in favor of 4479 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. With that, we go to item B on the agenda, item we have talked about before. Staff have done a good job in converting over what is an executive order from the federal government to consent locally. Besides the discussion that we had, I believe last week on it, any significant updates, Mr. Zabel?
The one thing I would add, in section 1, we did add an additional sentence because of some issues that were brought to our attention during the interim, and that would be that the council, in their passage of the resolution, would encourage the Franklin County Board of Commissioners to also provide its consent for resettlement.
And also, that's actually in my suggestion for inclusion. And I attended and the group that came and presented last week had a quarterly meeting that was at just this afternoon. And much like the discussion that we had last week, where this is new and trying to figure out the details exactly right, things have been in flux. And one of the points that I heard that is, I'll say, is a possibility. I didn't get any sense that it was exact, but that this statement may need to be exercised by the governor and by the county, and there may be a question mark. I'm very careful about saying may, whether or not the city will be included. They also said at the same time that they will want jurisdictions all to affirm if at all possible. So if it is a case where it's a city-county sort of thing, and we do adopt it, I think it would be appropriate to encourage our county, since also the city of Pasco is about 75 or 80% of the county, to do that as well. So that's why I wanted it added, and hopefully you would want it as well. That said, any questions of staff or a motion? Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 3924, declaring an intent to grant consent for the relocation of refugees within municipal boundaries per United States Executive Order 13888.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded by several people. I'm going to say Mr. Serrano on that one. Discussion on this one. Any discussion? Then we're running an efficient meeting, so I'm going to ask for your vote. All those in favor of resolution number 3924 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And also, I think the county commissioners meet tomorrow, I believe. So Mr. Zabel staff will make sure that they get a copy of this material adopting this evening.
We'll do so.
Okay, wonderful. With that, we keep moving on the agenda. Amendment to purchase and sale agreement for Columbia Basin College. Mr. Radkai.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Good evening. The item brought before you this evening is amendment to the original purchase and sale agreement entered into in 2016 between the CBC Student Housing LLC and the City of Pasco for the sale of a portion of the property, which included Phase 1 of the CBC Student Housing Project. The PSA at the time provided for the sale of that portion with the two options on additional property to be purchased in the future, subparcel B and subparcel C. And subparcel C had an option originally that must be exercised by January 1st, 2020. And subparcel C has an option that expires on January 1st, 2022, if I read my notes correctly. The subject amendment proposes to amend Section 5 of the agreement, extending the deadline for the option of subparcel B from January 1st, 2020 to January 1st, 2022. Which would match the deadline of subparcel C. In addition to extending the deadline for subparcel B, staff has negotiated a provision within the reversionary clause, which is in section 14C, requiring the developer to obtain city approval for any sale within the 48-month reversionary period. This is to ensure that the property is developed based upon its original intended use and that it remains on the city tax rolls. Some of the reasons from the applicant for this extension of the option for subparcel B was they really wanted to determine the market for student housing on CBC, the market conditions. There's a certain percentage of students that are on a waiting list or expressing interest in that. Has not reached the numbers to where they're comfortable, both the college and the developer, to develop at this time. That is not to say that the second set of CBC student housing units would occur 2 years from 2020, but it really extends that option. It could be later in 2020, it could be in 2021 anytime, but gives them that option to determine the market need and ensure that the housing is fully occupied. Also want to state for the record within your packet, it is stated that the property is located at 20th and Burden Boulevard. It is actually in the southeast corner of 20th and Argent, so to correct that for that record there. Staff recommends the City Council approve the resolution authorizing the city manager to execute amendment number 1 to this purchase and sale agreement, and I'll take any questions from council at this time.
Questions or a motion? Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 3925, authorizing amendment number 1 to the purchase and sale agreement between the City of Pasco and CBC Student Housing LLC, and further to authorize the city manager to execute said amendment.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Martinez. Discussion on this item? Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Rakai, for this particular, what are they seeing for the existing housing? Is that pretty well filled up? Are they meeting current intent? I understand that they're not ready to move forward to the next development, but are they seeing good demand for their current?
Yeah, from my conversations about the first phase of the housing, it is fairly occupied. I believe it is fully occupied at this time. There's kind of waiting for that residual rollover to occur, but it is certainly a popular amenity with CBC, and I think a great amenity for the longevity of the college.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of Resolution 3925 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And Mr. Okay, so next item, a variety of project acceptances for multiple public works projects.
Our CIP manager, construction manager for Public Works is going to come up. I feel for Steve. He's home this evening, couldn't make it because he's taking care of his wife who had surgery today. So he gets to miss out on an agenda report that has all these projects. He was so excited about being able to deliver it to you. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kent.
Good to see you.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, congratulations, council members, city staff. I'm here to present to you 6 projects that we've completed this year. Totaling over almost $19 million that we have completed. One is the Columbia Water Supply Project, the new intake structure for the West Pasco Water Treatment Plant. Oregon Avenue Phase 1, which was from 395 from SR 182 to A Street. Harris Road Sewer Transmission Main, which is the main that gets the sewer to the Broadmoor area project for the future development. Butterfield Water Treatment Plant PLC and controls upgrade that gets basically our Butterfield plant into the 21st century as far as operations and controls and so forth. The water line extension on Schumann Lane, which would get fire protection for certain houses in an isolated area over that parallels Chiawana Park, and the 20th Avenue overlay from Court Street to I-182. Just to give you some ideas of what we were doing before, it's paper charts that were actually recording the production of the water plant per day. A lot of it was, couldn't operate the plant remotely. Now we can with the new controls and the PLC system that we currently have. Cleaned up the operation, easy to work on, easy to troubleshoot. We can run it remotely without having to have full-time staff at the plant if that is necessary. Oregon Avenue Phase 1, I think Dan Ford had presented to you a couple weeks ago. These are kind of the same pictures. We try to depict them from the same spot, but it just gives you an idea of before and after. And once WashDOT comes through and does their overlay over it, it'll look even better. Columbia Water Supply Project. This was the project that is the new intake structure. We're able to expand the West Pasco Water Treatment Plant to its full capacity now that we do have the intake system that in place to provide the water. 20th Avenue overlay was necessary with a lot of alligatoring, subgrade failure and so forth, and cleaned up that. We're hoping to do a whole lot more of that in the future. Harris Road Sewer Transmission Main, as I mentioned, gets the infrastructure in place for future development. This was the one along the parallel Schumann Lane, or parallel Chiawana Park, I'm sorry. Just to give you some ideas of the change order details, some of these are necessary when anytime you ever get into the ground, you run into unknown issues that you got to deal with, unknown abandoned utilities that you got to get through and so forth. The biggest share of them, I think most places average about 10%. We're around 6% on most of our projects. Just we're getting good designs and good forethought beforehand before the projects hit the streets. So we're doing really good as far as that compared to other municipalities. So staff has accepted these, and we are looking to you guys to accept these, and we can close these projects out. Any questions?
Questions, discussion? Six big projects. Mr. Martinez.
Wonderful. I've had the pleasure of actually seeing most of these projects and going by, and it's awesome to see it grow and see the advancements we're making in Pasco. Just one quick question: if these projects get accepted, we ratify them, but there's still some. Does this mean that everybody who did work there is off the hook, or is there still?
If there's no federal or state or no federal money involved in it, we do require a 1-year warranty time. So once it's accepted from today, we have exactly 1 year until the warranty is up. So it gives us a chance to, if there's any problems that arise, it's nice to go through 4 seasons, especially on a road project, to make sure that we don't have any settlements or problems with the storm system, for example, and so forth.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just had a quick question about our practice for how do we control for change orders and making sure keeping developers honest and things of that nature.
Sure.
How do we make sure that is happening? And
A lot of times we have experience from previous projects, or if there's an item on another project that's similar in magnitude, or we can take the quantities off of that and be able to plug it into the change orders and make sure that they are valid and accurate. And if they're not, we can dispute those, and more often than not, we do.
Thank you.
Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a similar question regarding change orders.
Sure.
And 6% over change orders is great. I mean, that's a good mark to be able to hit, and that really does mean that we're keeping good control of our work. I would be interested in knowing overall how kind of our project estimation is. We've got an original estimate that goes to bid. These change orders are from the bid number, which of course deviates to some extent from our original estimation. Sure. And I'm not going to put you on the spot right now, but I would be interested if staff would be willing to provide just kind of an overall overview of how are we doing hitting our original estimates as part of that process.
We're real close on a lot of our estimates. We do suffer from bidding climate. There's certain aspects or certain times of the year where if you bid a project, you're going to get better numbers than you are later on. Say for example, a big road project. If you put it out in November and you're going to do an early spring start, you're probably going to get better numbers than if you wait till July and start then, because they're going to be up against a paving window closing in the fall or that type of thing. So we do, a lot of it, we do suffer from bidding climate. So there's a lot of variables that go into that, where you'll have the engineer's estimate of something that may have been done 6 months ago or a year ago, and it just depends on when the project hits the streets.
Certainly, I just I'd be interested in knowing overall how we're doing on that and when we're how that's looking. So just
Sure.
Again, no need for further information tonight, but I'd be interested in that in the future. Thank you.
I'm going to hazard a guess. Dave or staff are going to take some notes. That might be a spring workshop opportunity to update on that process. That sounds fair. It's been a number of years probably. Would you like to make a motion, Mr. Maloney?
I would if there's no further questions.
We'll do a motion and then we'll do questions.
Great. I move to approve resolution number 3926, accepting work performed by Apollo Inc. under contract for the Columbia Water Supply Project.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Martinez. I may need the gentleman back. Mr. Serrano, your questions?
No, I'm just going to make an overall general comment. It's in part what Mr. Maloney said. I appreciate that it looks like these deltas are starting to shrink a little bit. Initially when we came in, I feel like we saw some pretty significant change orders. It's just been a couple years, so it seems like you folks are really trying to tighten those numbers in, and I don't know if you're working with different numbers, as Mr. Maloney alluded to. I just appreciate seeing that we're bidding things that are being realized very close to what we're bidding, so thank you for your efforts there.
Thank you, Mr. Serrano. So again, there is a list of them, and I'm going to hazard a guess that once we do one, we're going to do a big chain of them in pieces. But so we talk it out if you have any questions about any of them at this point, even though we got one on the floor. If not, I'm going to ask for your first vote. All those in favor of Resolution 3926 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 3927, accepting work performed by Colbert Construction, Inc. under contract for the Oregon Avenue State Route 395 Phase 1 project.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Barajas in this case. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of 3927 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Maloney.
I move to approve resolution number 3928, accepting work performed by Colbert Construction, Inc. under contract for the Harris Road Sewer Transmission Main Project.
It's moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Alvarado in this case, and questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of 3928 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Maloney.
I move to approve resolution number 3929, accepting work performed by Townsend Controls and Electric LLC under contract for the Butterfield WTP and PLC and Controls Upgrade Project.
It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Milne. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of 3929 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And Mr. Maloney.
I move to approve resolution number 3930, accepting work performed by Goodman and Mellenbacher, Inc., under contract for the water line extension Schumann Lane project.
There's a motion. How about a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Serrano. Good job, Mr. Maloney, too, on the Mellenbacher. And any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of 3930 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And Mr. Maloney.
I move to approve resolution number 3931, accepting work performed by Central Washington Asphalt under contract for the 20th Avenue Overlay Project.
Motion, is there a second? By Mr. Martinez. Discussion on that one? Hearing none, all those in favor of 3931 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously, and I know for a fact that is a record I've seen over the 16 years for 6 public works projects and tens of millions of dollars of stuff that Pasco has needed. So thank you, Mr. Zabel, staff. This is a big night tonight to get all of these things done. We're doing these also means that we get to enjoy our Christmas break here that's coming up after the next meeting, which we're going to get to in the not too distant future. Cruising through, number 6, new business. And we've talked about it a little bit, I think, before, but we need to formalize this. Now that we have a sister arrangement with Colima, there's an incredible opportunity to invite the governor of Colima, Mr. Morales.
Good evening, Mayor Watkins and members of council. Congratulations again on your successful tenure, and I never know when my last time is going to be here in front of the full council, but I know it's my last time in front of you as mayor, so I've really greatly appreciated you and your work and your great ambassadorship for this community. I'm Michael Morales. I'm a development consultant to the administration, and one of the projects I'm working on is the organizational development of the Colima Sisterhood Cooperation Friendship Agreement. One thing that has come forward is the opportunity to invite the governor of Colima to participate in the Cinco de Mayo Festival for 2020. And the reason that this is before you this evening is a more matter of protocol. As you know, we have an agreement between the state of Colima and the city of Pasco, and the DPDA is who the city contracts with to put on the Cinco de Mayo Festival. So they, in preparation for the 2020 event, are getting some things going early on, and advise them that if they wanted to pursue this opportunity, that the proper channel would be to have the mayor or city council request the governor's participation here. And from that point, assuming it's accepted, I have been in conversation with the governor's staff to make them aware that this may be forthcoming. Also, last Friday, I met with the new consulate of Mexico in the Seattle office and discussed this as well, because part of that protocol will be checking in with the consulate when they do come to the United States and doing some official state business over there as part of the process. So how this would work is, assuming some council support and approval this evening, the invitation will be extended from the mayor to the governor. They have the dates locked in. At that point, it will function between the DPDA and the governor's office as far as what other elements of our exchange opportunities will he bring with him as part of the state. So as you recall, Mayor, we met with the Ministry of Culture, Secretary of Arts and Culture, Secretary of Economic Development, Secretary of Social Development, and Public Safety. My guess is that you're going to see this be very oriented in the arts and culture venue, from culinary to performing arts. We've had an offer from the conductor of the State Symphony Orchestra to come and perform here in Pasco as well, and he is working directly with Jose Enriquez, who's involved with the Arts and Culture Committee of that Colima initiative.
And with that, and having met the governor, Jose Ignacio Peralta Sanchez, when we were in Colima, nice gentleman, and would be an incredible opportunity, I believe, to invite him up here for the event. Questions or a motion at this point? Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Alvarado, for making sure my light's actually on. I move to authorize the mayor to execute the 2020 Pasco Cinco de Mayo Festival invitation letter to the governor of Colima.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Serrano, I think, and I love being able to, or that we have competition. I love that. That's great. With that discussion on this one, Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Morales, for your hard work on getting this set up. I just wanted to say that I do think that this is one of those things that we really it's fitting into a number of initiatives we're working on, and I had the opportunity to meet with the governor's the Washington State governor's Eastern Washington representative, and really highlighted to him that the city of Pasco is working on this international agreement, and that I think that there might be some opportunities for the state to potentially weigh in. Just gave him a general heads up to that hey, we're working on some really neat things in Pasco, and pay attention. We're significant yet, and within the state as well. So thank you. I just wanted to make sure that to let everyone know that I'm doing what I can to amplify the visibility we get for the just amazing work we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the invitation to the mayor, or the governor of Colima, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. With that, thank you, Mr. Morales, too. Appreciate your help, and thank you for the kind words this evening, too. Okay. You're also doing the next one, too? Well, this one's a revisit to an item that we have actually adopted before, but we are potentially adjusting basis and disposal 2020 rates. So actually, it is different. Okay. Mr. Zabel.
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering what he was going to say.
Wait, do you want to?
So, Council, you did visit this most recently at your November 12th council workshop, and you'd authorized some rates for 2020. And as those council members around the committee will recall, we had some discussion about how a couple of the inflationary factors were basically pyramided, one on top of the other. And that discussion got back to the BDI senior executive leadership, and they've had an opportunity to take a look at that and are proposing new rates that are about 0.7% less than what was proposed in November. So council's approval tonight would essentially implement or allow for a 3.4% increase rather than I think it was 4.08 previously. So we're looking at about 60 cents or 70 cents more for a 96 gallon can per month for the average resident.
And I can't imagine that we're going to say no to this, but we should do a motion to adopt these alternate rates instead. Would somebody like to make that motion? Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to confirm the solid waste disposal rates for 2020 as presented by BDI.
I say.
It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Alvarado. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And special thanks to the BDI team for all here and also back at BDI for coming forward and working with the city on this. This is one of those that just because we adjusted the rates, finding these things and making sure that we kept that long-term relationship, we really do appreciate it. Thank you. With that, I guess I'm just going to ask anything else we need to do in a special meeting that we haven't done, Mr. Zabel?
I think we have it covered.
Okay, because if I adjourn this meeting, then I think we're going to take a 5-minute break before we do a workshop meeting, and then we'll be done after this evening. So there's no, we're going to adjourn for 5 minutes. It's 8 o'clock now. We'll be back for our next meeting at 8:05. And welcome back from our break. And as we shift modes, we're going to go through our workshop meeting. And I'm trying to bring the agenda up as I speak. And there it is. Call to order. We don't need to do a roll call again, so we'll do, though, if there are any verbal reports from council members this evening that you wish to share about meetings or past events. Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the opportunity on Saturday to attend Winterfest down at Volunteer Park. It was just a fantastic community event. We had great turnout by kids singing, and a whole lot of community members came on down. And we had an opportunity to light the heritage tree, and Mr. Martinez joined me for that. And that was, I think it was just wonderful. That was a really special event, and I was glad to be a part of it.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Mr. Alvarado.
Not an event attended, but I do want to give kudos to the city staffs, more specifically to the graffiti abatement team. Ran into them a couple times. We had some graffiti in our neighborhood, and just amazing to see just the response that they have. And we do see kind of an uptick in around this time of year for whatever reason, and recruitment, I guess you could call it. But I think it's just a great testament of just the city's serious about making sure we keep our community safe. And so I just want to give a big shout out to the graffiti abatement team that's keeping our community looking good. Sure. And then secondly, I wanted to just say I attended the ELF, Chihuahua, and Pasco High drama team got together to do a production of ELF, and I was extremely impressed. I'm never impressed by high school students, and this was incredibly impressive. And so I invite anyone who wants to go check it out.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarado. And Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Along with the Winterfest, I was able to attend the Pasco Employee Appreciation and Recognition Party, and I was so impressed with the way it was set up. And although Councilwoman Blanche couldn't attend, it was a potluck, and there was what I thought was menudo, but it wasn't menudo, it was pozole. And Blanche was able to make that for the guests at this recognition, and it was emotional, and it's just so good to see the community come together and award and honor K9 Lemon for his attributes. And he was chosen before he actually passed, but that was a very emotional time for Joseph, right? Joshua, I'm sorry. And so anyway, I wanted to thank everybody involved in that organization that made that such a wonderful get-together. And also one more thing before I don't get a chance. I'd just like to share with the community, don't miss the spirit of the season. I want to wish everybody Merry Christmas, and I just wish everybody a wonderful time. Luminaria is December 14th, up there on the Desert Plateau area, and I just hope the best for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Mr. Milne.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. It was a busy week for myself with Winterfest and on Friday I also attended a couple different meetings, the opening of Chapel Hill, which was pretty cool, and so the mayor was one of the first cars to go through it. But I also got to attend the Kalima Pasco Steering Committee, hosted by Mike Morales, and it was good. I was actually surprised how many people were there. There was, I think, myself included, 18, and we're doing a lot, and it should be a pretty exciting time coming up. And it was just good to see such community spirit and turnout at an event that's at 8:30 in the morning. So it was good.
Thank you, Mr. Milne. With that, we're through our verbal reports. We're going to go on to section 4 on the agenda, a variety of items to discuss tonight, starting off with the first item, Northwest Area Trunk Sewer LID, possible LID formation. And I think Mr. Zabel noted before the meeting that several staff members are out, so Dave's having to work pretty hard tonight, presenting some other stuff. So, Mr. Zabel.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. Talk a little bit about Northwest Area Trunk Sewer LID. We've had a brief discussion about this previously, and as Council recalls, matter of fact, you just accepted the Northwest Area Trunk Sewer line that brought the sewer out onto Harris Road. And in the overview, you can see a north-south vertical blue line with a line about 2/3 up, heading off to the east towards Broadmoor, or Road 100. And so that's a proposed alignment for an LID that would serve a major portion of the what's known as the Adams property, as well as there's a parcel there where that kind of Pac-Man looking circle is, number 2. That's the Palish Homes subdivision. So there'd be a lift station out in there that would access that line as well. And then up to the north is some school district and future residential property, as well as some multiple family residential property on the corners. So that's a good chunk of area that gets served by this. Also would be sized to serve into the urban growth boundary into the future as well. So those are referred to as segment 1, 2, and 3. Segment 1 being the lower part of the north-south segment from Burns Road to the south to Harris. Segment 2, the piece just to the north of that, and segment 3, the kind of a service line off to the east. The total cost of those improvements are about, design and construction costs are about $5.5 million. And you'll note on there, it talks about city contribution. Those are contributions the city makes as part of our oversizing ordinance that where you really can't make development pay for to put in bigger facilities than what their actual impacts are. And so the city is out of its connection fee dollars funds an oversize account so we can work with developers to in this case make that segment 1 sewer line, for instance. It'll be about 30-inch diameter for a good chunk of it, and then it'll start to narrow down a little bit as it gets north. So you can see total city contribution of about $970,000, which brings the net LID cost, which the developers would finance, to about $4.5 million. And then you start to put some costs on there, the financing costs and potential interim financing, establishment of escrow and the 10% LID guarantee, which is required. So we'd be financing just under $6 million for the LID. Those would be over about 6 different properties. The next slide really just kind of goes into the difference between the developer share of it is what, the total, for instance, segment 1, 2.866 million, the developer share being about 2.25 of that, and then the city contribution being 600,000. So that's how we got that 970 out of those 3 segments. Next slide talks about a bit about the major property owners out there. And you'll note Dale Adams, that's the big piece down at the bottom that we're all pretty familiar with. But also there's the Barker Ranch area and the Sharma property, which we annexed into the city a few years back. Pasco School District. I will note Pasco School District property is actually outside of the city limits. So in an LID where you have properties inside and outside the LID city limits, we have a couple choices, and we'll see how that works. They could certainly annex in, which the school district could initiate, or the downside of having 2 properties in and out is you have to have a sufficiency of support for the properties both in and outside separately. You can't aggregate them. So as long as the school district were on board, we could still run a successful LID to include them. If they were in opposition to the LID, they'd be able to bow out of the LID. So as I mentioned again, about $6 million, and you can see that total on the bottom. And you see most of the dollars are attributed to the largest property owner out there, Adams property. Barker's a big chunk of it, a lot of acreage there. Residential style development, and then you can see how that kind of plays out. From a timing standpoint, we want to move forward fairly quickly with this. We have a very motivated group of developers out there, which is something we've been working on, trying to develop support for that for the past several months. Matter of fact, we're going to bring this very presentation to you in November, and we held it off a month or so just to make sure everybody was on board. But so tonight's our workshop. We'd have a resolution of intent to form the LID coming back to you right after the beginning of the year. and get that information out to property owners and notice in the paper, and formation hearing as early as February 3rd, and adoption following that. And that 45-day process. And with that, you'd have a formed LID. We'd go forward. We have not made a determination. The LID we just completed, for instance, for Chapel Hill, you actually went right into a final assessment hearing. We've not made that determination at this point in time. Typically, that was a pretty unusual, not an unusual process, unusual for us. Worked really well. We're a little giddy about it. We want to make sure before we jump into this, we have a few of the unknowns known, because once you finalize that hearing, you can reopen it, but it's sort of an unpopular thing to do when you finalize the assessment roll. So with that, you'll see the resolution attached at your January meeting, and we hope to move this thing forward. We have, again, I mentioned the major property owners out there very excited about getting this thing rolling. So, any questions?
Questions, discussion? Mr. Schramm.
Thank you. Dave, can you speak to, you kind of alluded to it, where exactly we are with the city? How, are they warm on this? Have we had conversations? I mean, I'm sorry, the school district.
We have had conversations, and they want to see sewer. And matter of fact, we're looking at a couple of different alternatives in terms of alignment. This is the alignment we're showing on the map is it's a big fuzzy line. There's a route that we can take on that'll get that sewer out there a little bit deeper with a little bit less disruption. We won't have to go through so many of the sand dunes if we move a little to the west. And with that, we'd be able to sewer any and all of the school district property. Right now, as proposed, there'd be a portion of that property where the athletic fields are that would not be sewerable from a gravity standpoint.
Okay,
so that's really the only hang up. There's kind of, I mean, I don't want to say it's a hang up, because if you're going to build a school there, you're going to have sewer. And if you're going to flip it and invest someplace else, you're going to have sewer. So.
Right. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that they were receptive of it. Quite frankly, we've taken some slack for school impact fees, and if they're not willing to support our projects, I think we need to seriously consider some of the relationships we have. But if they're receptive, then the concern's void.
Other discussion, Mr. Armoni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. Zabel, I'm, of course, generally supportive of these, especially if the property owners are interested. I have two questions for you. Is the only property that is outside the city limits the school district property?
That's correct.
Great. And then the other question I had was in regards, not specifically this LID, but are there other LIDs that will also be coming down affecting the same property owners? Roads, as a for instance, anything else?
There's a potential, we've not got that far along the process, almost said road, with some of the interior improvements that might occur on, for instance, the Adams property. Yeah, we have not had that a discussion about a potential road LID with anyone with relationship, for instance, Burns. Burns would be probably a pretty ideal place to do a road LID.
Okay, because when I'm looking at this property and when we're really doing greenfield development like this over such a large area, it seems that you're going to need all of the basic functions of a municipality served to the area. And if we're seeing that the economies of scale that we're getting by doing such stuff like we did with Chapel Hill Boulevard, like we're proposing to do with the sewer, I would be interested in understanding what the whole package is rather than bit by bit.
Yeah, we can have that, certainly have that discussion in January.
Right, and just in general, I understand that the specifics may change and we may go forward and not go forward, but thank you.
It would help maybe to clarify too. So this is a big piece of property that doesn't have any roads on it right now. And realistically speaking, it will be a mix of roads that are developed that are neighborhood roads that are probably funded by impact fees, and then a mixture of then arterials that might need to be supplemented. Is like Chapel Hill was it was a arterial versus neighborhood street. So there's there's a
Yeah,
mix of
for
funding
instance,
sources.
Burns already has traffic on it, so we can't require the developer to completely rebuild Burns. The city already owns a share of what needs to happen on Burns. Any interior roads in, for instance, the Adams property or Payless property or whatever, those could happen with an LID. Most likely they'll be developer built, but I could see where maybe perhaps the extension of Sandifer is a possibility to be built with an LID. I don't know if the developer's ready to do that at this point.
And we're not holding to that, but just
Right.
that's an example of
As
one
an
of the ways
example.
it might go.
Yeah.
Okay, that helps. I appreciate that. Other discussion, Mr. Alvarado?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I have more of a question for my own knowledge. LADs are complex animals. Is the last one we, I'm assuming is not as complex as the last one that we just broke ground for, actually opened recently. But just for my own edification, is this similar in the way that we figure out what the benefit is through the methodology of, is it like mathematical or benefit area? Is it the latter? And if so, my question is, how do we know based on the intensity of use that we don't know? We don't know what it'd be used for a school or it would not, or will they sell the property, things like that. So I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, so for when you use the methodology, which is the appraisal method, is I think what you're referring to, is it's the highest and best use. So it's based on the highest and best use given the current zoning and what that value adds of the sewer line adds to that property.
So it's highest potential.
Highest potential use based on the zoning.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And of course, pro rata then per developer or parcel of property.
Right.
Okay.
And you can't charge more than what that benefit's going to be. So if we now it's a chunk of desert right now. If you want the sewer line in it, you can do something. So it's adding a lot of value. So I'm pretty sure we're going to be okay on the cost of the utility extension being at least adding at least the amount of value of its cost.
With the general nature of LIDs that tend to be exercised.
Yeah, I think where you kind of run into it, where it's a little more dicey is when you have developed or maybe partially developed, like say you run a sewer line through a bunch of half-acre lots that have great septic systems on them. That it's a little tougher argument to make. You can certainly make an argument that you benefit from having the sewer on there, but when they have a functioning on-site system, politically, it's difficult. Yeah.
So staff are bringing this up, and if we were to be amenable to it, then the expectation is then bringing it back in a formal way, kicking off in the beginning of the year. Is that right, Mr. Zimmer?
That's correct.
And
so this is just to let you know what's happening with it.
Okay, so that's kind of an update, and I'm seeing some nods, so I think the general trend is towards that, especially if the property owners are amenable to it. So a little preview of what's coming up at the beginning of 2020. With that, and I think related to this area of town as well, is related to the Broadmoor area non-project EIS. And that's Mr. White. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. And you're right, there's a lot going on in the Broadmoor area. One of the things that you can't see on the ground, though, is the development of the non-project EIS, which has been occurring for a number of months now. And essentially, the technical aspect of that non-project EIS is complete. It involved, in particular, a traffic impact analysis, which was very time-consuming and a very technical kind of a thing. The Council of Governments operates the regional transportation model for predicting transportation impacts based on land use. Of course, they did not have the preferred Broadmoor area land use pattern in their traffic model. So our consultant had to develop from the ground up the model, then incorporated the preferred land use alternative, which involved anywhere from 7,000 to 8,300 dwelling units and up to 2,500 jobs. I was really sweating bullets for a while with that, but when the analysis was complete, it showed that actual impacts to the state transportation system are going to be less than we anticipated. The WashDOT model itself predicts some issues without Broadmoor on that 182 over the 20-year planning horizon, but the impacts with Broadmoor are actually less than we thought. So both the number of trips due to the mix of land use and the duration of the trips, the trip length itself was less than what the WashDOT model predicted. The technical analysis of the EIS also indicated a very high probability for the discovery of cultural and historical resources in the project area. And as a condition of mitigation, they've recommended that a full-blown archaeological survey be conducted, and once that's done, then what's called an unanticipated discovery plan be adopted. And again, when you think back to the original intent of the Broadmoor Master Plan, it was to produce the environmental analysis so that once things like the sewer and the road systems were in place, then the entitlements were essentially in place also. So the analysis would be complete, and then hopefully the zoning and land use would also be complete to allow development to occur all in one fell swoop. While the technical analysis is being developed and finalized, we're working with a consultant to develop what was missing from our original contract with the land planning consultant. Essentially, the development of design and design guidelines, the development of zoning and implementation strategies, and open space guidelines for rounding off the master plan. And those are happening. There's a lot of Broadmoor juggling balls in the air right now. Those are all happening in conjunction with the majority property owners' economic analysis based on a present day, a 10-year, and a 20-year look ahead to see what kind of absorption rates the residential and commercial markets will be experiencing for the entire Tri-City region. So all those things are up in the air right now. We expect, though, to be able to release the draft impact statement before the end of the year. We expect that the master plan itself will be available for the Planning Commission, at least initial consideration, at their January meeting. And as a matter of fact, just today I spoke with the economic specialist leading the economic study and had a very good conversation. And I think we're on the right track to getting this through and onward.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to try a cooking metaphor. It sounds like we're talking about baking a fairly elaborate cake here. A lot of things in parallel. This, what the EIS portion is the core of the cake, and those we're smelling them, and they're about done and going to be done very soon. And then we're going to be able to cool it off, and then be able to put all the frosting and the ingredients on it and make this a fully formed cake. Is that a fair simplification of this?
No, it really is. It's a layer cake.
Layer cake. And tonight is an update. There's not a specific action that we need to do. This is kind of an update, and again, this is going to be something that's going to happen. We'll see more of here in the coming year. Very soon.
Yeah, definitely. We've kept the Planning Commission in the loop. The EIS itself involves no council action. It's a tool to help you evaluate land use and decision points in whatever process we're involved with out there. But no action is expected of council this evening.
That said, questions, Mr. Alvarado?
More of a comment.
Sure.
It's encouraging to me to see this continue and being on a couple of transportation-related committees. Really, the message I've gotten is that we can't continue status quo if we want to get our projects funded from WashDOT. And so it's encouraging to also hear just good news that our models are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing, and I really would look forward to that being the case and not having a Road 68 situation, but having something that the community feels really proud of and feels like they want to go to, but also people want to live there and work there and spend time there. So I'm really excited just about what's going to happen in this area, and that the city's really taken an effort to make it a very special place in the Tri-Cities.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarado. Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to echo Mr. Alvarado's comments there. I agree that this is very encouraging, and it's exciting that this is moving forward in such a big way, and recognizing that we're kind of stuck. I know the number of communities have gotten a lot of outside input about their urban growth areas and such, and I know this is one of our tools as to how to keep things manageable and within build the best city we can. I do have two questions for you, Mr. White. First question is regarding to something you said earlier in the presentation. Was you talked a little bit about how the impact to the state systems were going to be less due to the plan, this master plan, and this kind of idea of how we want to develop Broadmoor. So is that due to the availability of local stores and amenities and such that people stay in kind of a complete neighborhood? So you can go to restaurants, you can go shopping and such without having to get on the freeway? Is that the...
It is, in addition to the amount of commercial property expected is going to create jobs, so that there's an impact from people being able to live and work without having to access the interstate system to drive to Horn Rapids or Porta Benton or wherever.
Great, fantastic. That's great to hear. I was surprised to hear that and gratified that that was going to be the case. So my other question is regarding the preferred alternative on Figure 4. One of the things I noticed when I was looking between Figure 13 and Figure Alternative 2 and Alternative Preferred Alternative 1, I was noticing that there was some discussion about what was it? Pocket commercial in the medium density alternative. I didn't see the same sort of language in the preferred alternative. Can you speak a little bit as to how that development structure will be going? Would be going in the preferred alternative?
Yes, and if it's not included in that discussion, it should have been, because it's intended that the preferred alternative would also have, particularly as you go from the red commercial designation westward, the preferred alternative would have, in fact, pocket commercial availability through the mix of land uses indicated roughly along the rough Sandifer extension corridor.
And could you speak a little bit to what pocket commercial really looks like in this function?
It's not regional in scale or scope, so it's sized appropriately for just a much smaller market. You would not need an interstate system, for example, to justify the pocket commercial designations. You could get by with very smaller scale, either let's say eating venues or small markets or shops, as opposed to a Costco warehouse style distributorship, those kinds of things.
Excellent, thank you. Again, encouraging to hear that. And I assumed that was part of the alternative, but I noted that there was a little bit different in the figure. I just wanted you to speak to make sure that I understood that that wasn't included. Thank you.
Mr. Alvarado?
Sorry, one more question. This is kind of more of a general idea. Is there any tool that can be created to incentivize a diversity of housing types that could promote a diversity of incomes in a place like this? I know some cities have done things like that, and that's definitely not a conversation that we need to open. But I'd love to perhaps have more conversations in the future about. I know we were talking about using some programs from the state to be able to promote more affordable housing in the community. My thought is I've seen different cities that build these mixed use great looking neighborhoods that end up the people don't actually live there because they can't afford folks who are making your pizza can't afford to live there. And so I'm just curious if that's a conversation that could be had in the future.
I appreciate that. And just for council's note, I had that exact conversation with the economic consultant this morning. We were talking about the difficulty in providing the flexibility in the zoning and development standards balanced against what the market can support. And he was explaining that in the community he's from, the local government mandated certain things to occur in a land use sense. A commercial retail presence on the street floor and then living space above it. It was a failure and continues to be because the market rate doesn't support the ability for people to afford those rental units. They simply can't afford it. You're talking $5 to $6 a square foot for a rental, and that's not very attractive to many people that I know of anyway. So yeah, it's a complex conversation, and I think being sensitive to the market, being flexible in terms of implementation, in itself, both of those go a very long way into accommodating, I think, providing the kinds of housing choices that we may not have today.
Mr. Serrano.
Thank you. Mr. White, have the traffic consultants looked at whether this will have any impact on Road 68? I'm imagining if people can stay in this corridor, there may be a lightened burden on 68 possibly.
They did look at that. They looked extensively at that. And I probably should provide council maybe a memorandum that indicates what the parameters were for them in their traffic modeling, because they looked at 68, 100, Burns, Sandifer, and a whole slew of things that I can't even remember right now. That's why it took so long, because the model had to be developed from the ground up.
Expectation is the specifics of that will be shared with council in some fashion. Okay.
Yes.
Good discussion. This is a hot property, hot area of town. There's a potential for doing something different. I look at this, and this is just there's a different quality, different aspect to it, and they having that big of a chunk of green space, or we know it as sand space, converted over as a master plan is exciting. It is also as another option for different type of housing, and as well as commercial in that area of town. So it sounds exciting. Again, updates too. That's one of the moving parts. We'll see more of that in 2020. Thanks for the update, Mr. White. With that, we go to item C, Downtown Pasco Development Authority 2020 Funding Agreement. Also, Mr. White, or excuse me, Ms. Morales. There, this is where we were going to go to.
Yes.
Thanks for your patience.
And downtown refuse rates. Good evening, Mayor Watkins, Michael Morales, here with the DPDA annual funding agreement renewal. As you recall, during the course of this last year, we have actually put through 2 6-month extensions rather than our 2-year agreement. That was because at this point last year, DPDA was absent an executive director, and we're going to have an interim appointment while we went through a recruitment process for a permanent executive director. We actually took longer to go through that process. I facilitated 2 recruitment processes because we didn't have the candidates that we were looking for the first time around when it came to negotiation. As you've met Mr. Gutierrez-Gomez, we feel like we found the right person to come in and re-engage and activate our business community downtown. And so part of what will be occurring in 2020 is that we've recommended a 1-year agreement instead of 2-year agreement so that we can keep DPDA in sync with the new biennial budget cycle of the city. So it would be renewed at this time next year, possibly for a 2-year period. The other reason that is important is that the 5-year strategic plan for DPDA just expired in 2019, and because they didn't have a permanent executive director, it didn't make sense to go through that process of a 5-year plan for somebody who wasn't going to be here for the 5-year plan. So that will be part of Mr. Gutierrez-Gomez's agenda in the early part of 2020 to have that 5-year plan together. And so logically, if you're going to have that plan together, you'll want to, if you're going to make any adjustments to a 2-year agreement going forward, you're going to want to have that be in sync with itself. It may change. The one thing we do know is that for this year, the funding remains flat, and we have not entertained any other discussions about increased funding in the future, but it may be structured in a way that was more in line with what their strategic plan is for the coming year.
Questions? Discussion? Just observation. We know that downtown is going to probably always be a bit of a challenge, or not fit magically in those perfectly crisp lines of the way a municipal operation works. But as I think this council and community is still committed to making sure that the downtown is a viable and having that right mix of supplementing, putting some extra resources down there is important for us. And so we will continue to have patience, and also know though that the DPDA will have to perform a variety of things for those resources. So I think we're still in and around the right mix, and look forward to the new director staying a long time as well.
Vicki, and on the other side of that coin as well, and I'm glad you mentioned that characteristic of the DPDA, because we also struggle with we're not a perfect fit for the national nor state Main Street programs, whether that be operationally or quite frankly just culturally, and how we engage a community into a 4-point approach that's basically based on East Coast, 200-year-old downtown standards that don't reflect the browning of America, so to speak, on the west side of the country, and how we've changed and have more immigrant-based business districts that are a part of a single community Main Street versus just a single neighborhood in a larger urban area. So thank you for that, and that we're continuing to work through those parameters of Main Street, and hopefully we can start to teach Main Street a little bit about how you can be culturally relevant to a community like Pasco, because there's many others like us in this state that want to be involved as well.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to comment that since I've been on this council, it's been high on our priority to ensure that our downtown Pasco don't wither away and is growing just just like the rest of the city. And although we've had our hiccups, I know that if we hadn't put the attention that we put on it, it wouldn't look the way it looks today. And we have some high hopes, goals that we need to achieve with the Lewis Street overpass, and just the way it looks now and all the activities going on down there. I know it hasn't been perfect, but it's been productive anyway. So we're just hoping that with a new director, we can move forward and continue to improve in our downtown and keep it as active and as vibrant as it's going. Thank you.
Good to see you still invested.
Yeah.
Mr. Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Morales, for the update and presentation. Yeah, I guess as a comment, one of the things I think should be, I guess what I've seen is that there's some turnover in the director position, and that I don't know how competitive. I know that we have approved some competitive wages and moved in that direction for the city. So I'm wondering if there's some form of plan to make sure that that's a position that is also competitive, and also we retain the staff that we have, especially at the director level.
A good question. That was certainly something that we took into consideration in the recruitment, and something that I conveyed to the board is that if you think you have the right person for the job, do what it takes to get them here and be 100% behind them and support them. And that's what we've done with Gustavo. Also understanding that what's also very different about our downtown and Main Street program is that two of the elements, actually three of them, but two for sure, that are primary responsibilities in this agreement don't fall within Main Street. One is the operation of the Pasco Specialty Kitchen, and the gem that is a culinary incubator, and also the running of a 6-month farmers market and trying to build programming around that. Now we add into that we're about to drop $6 million into one area of downtown that expands that programming. So all that to say that we were right in the range of Main Street manager salaries based on a survey of the entire state this last year for the recruitment. So we posted in that range. When it came time to push the button on who we wanted for the job, we took the other factors into consideration. And if we are very much near the top of the salary package for Main Street managers throughout the state of Washington. And I would say that even then, that's a push because we're doing those extra things that they sometimes aren't. Also absent here is, aside from the city's guaranteed money in the contract on an annual basis, and the block grant subsidy into the operation of the kitchen, we don't have a true business improvement district, meaning an assessment district in the downtown where by business licenses or by property tax assessments, there's a payment going to, or even memberships for that matter, payment going into another pot of funds to help supplement the budget. So I think we've pushed the salary level pretty good to get Gustavo here and put ourselves up there. It's his job to perform now and see that investment's worth it. But going forward, if all the other funding remains flat, we're going to gobble up more of that into a salary, which then leaves less in the toolbox to do things with, and you become a one-man gang pretty quickly, and that gets pretty tough to do.
So having the businesses really buy into it is going to be key.
Yeah, and it's a two-way street, and he's doing his best. That's one of his first priorities is to engage the community so that they see that it's worthwhile. And I'm sure what the city's going to undertake this next year is really going to help to seal that case.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Morales, thank you for the update, and you also have seen renewal of commitment to downtown, so we're on board with that. So we'll when it comes time for us to have other discussions of what needs to be next steps and all of that, we're there as well, I believe.
Okay.
Okay. With that, we go to item D, financial update. Ms. Sigdel's not here this evening, so I'm guessing Mr. Zabel, you're doing triple duty tonight.
Yep.
But we are near the end of the agenda, so congratulations. Like already a big year, big night.
This, well, thank you, Mayor. This report actually is going to be pretty easy since you just approved a budget adjustment. So you have a pretty good handle already on what the status of the city is and its major funds. We do provide a monthly general fund report, and so this is your first of what's called a quarterly report on the city's major funds, and you can see that's I defined as those funds above $3 million. You know, we have a ton of funds. We could talk all night, but I think there's 39 different funds, and so this kind of gives council, I think, just another tool, you know, in your awareness and oversight responsibilities. Our funds are tracking, as you can see from the report, pretty much as anticipated. You got some capital variances, we got some projects. Lewis Street hasn't kicked in yet, so the stormwater, you know, that's why the stormwater is low, and you know, there's some things like that. But overall, we're in really good shape. Quality report, as I mentioned, just for the sake of transparency, or the quarterly reports for the sake of the transparency and to give council another tool. So unless there's any questions about the report itself, I don't know that I need to speak to the numbers.
Well, I think it's fitting for the last item of the night to be financials and to take another look at them, and if we need to go through them as needed. So anybody want to go through any of those materials? Not seeing any hands raised, so we're going to go on to item 5, which is miscellaneous discussion. We usually start off with Mr. Zabel on that one.
Thank you, Mayor, again, and a few items tonight. Just quickly, make council aware the sign code update is progressing, and initial inventory of content neutrality and needed organizational changes to that to the PMC have been completed and will be transmitted to the Planning Commission for their review. And a first draft should be up around the middle of January. So, secondly, we talked about Winterfest already. We had sounds like about 12 to 1,500 in attendance, and the food collected at Winterfest, about 1,600 pounds of food for donation to the Second Harvest Food Bank. So that was a success as well. And again, I mentioned to council on Thursday evening, there'll be a Meet Your Chief event. Chief Roski will be meeting the community at the Police Community Room. And this is hosted by the Police Foundation, which we discussed earlier tonight in their awards banquet. And then certainly want to remind everyone, and for the public, send off and sound off for Mayor Watkins Wednesday, December 11th, 5:30 at Pasco Red Lion. And note that event is privately funded. It's not a city-funded event. So,
thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Miscellaneous discussion by council. Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This being our last meeting of the year, I'd like to echo and bring back one more time to what Mr. Martinez said earlier. And you know, just it's a wonderful time of year, and it is a good time to be with family and friends and really celebrate our community. And this is a good opportunity to remind yourselves to take the time to really spend with loved ones. The city business keeps on going on. I know staff is going to continue working diligently, and while there may be some vacation time, the water still needs to keep flowing. The sewer needs to keep going where it goes as well. So do keep in mind that while we get to celebrate and so many of our community members get to be at home, we do have many of our employees that still need to continue serving our community and making sure we all stay safe and healthy. So happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. And I guess I'm closing this out. I'm going to get a second chance here to speak, and I wanted to speak to you all, my colleagues on council. 2 years ago, significant change with council, and you made a deliberate choice to have me continue on as mayor. And besides me enjoying the opportunity and hoping that it's been helpful for all of you, I would just like to note, though, that it's, besides being, I think, probably the most rewarding 2 years of my 16 years on council, and there were being a variety of folks saying that I'm going to be missed or that my skills will be missed, I think it's critically important to tell you all, you're ready for the next mayor. You're going to do great next year. Pasco's going to do great. You all have gotten to be a little bit friends over the past couple of years. Continue that, trust each other, talk with each other, and know that when you come to this council, you can share your thoughts, and when it works best, you're able to also disagree without being disagreeable. And there's going to probably be some challenges that way, but I have zero doubt that you're all going to do well, and want to thank you and also wish you a very happy new year and successful 2020 and 2021 for your next term, as well as your newest council member, Zara, that's coming on as well. And I know that she is also going to be a fine addition to the team. So I've shared, I've think about it, and I want to make sure, since this is my last time here, I've shared and pointed out too that how important it is to staff, you as my council members, some of the folks here this evening who come here, Mr. Kidwell, I got to point him out, that if I look around the room, I'd say I'm the most senior person here tonight. However, Mr. Kidwell has me by probably a factor of 2 or 3 of having been here, and almost like the 8th council member in a way. And also you folks who come down on a Monday evening to come down and see what's going on in the city council, I appreciate that. I appreciate that personally. And as well, all the people of Pasco and all the people in the Tri-Cities. So with that, thank you all for coming. I'm going to ask, is there a need for an executive session?
No, sir.
Good, because when it work. So with that, thank you all for coming. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and thank you very much for letting me serve.